Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist / secular / awesome community. This is episode number 94. We're recording live on May 2nd, 2017. Google Hangouts took my damn gong sound away. I'm so sad. Thanks to Celeste Drive for being awesome and in love, and for clearly not being Marissa because purple. Welcome to Dustin Dark. He's the world-renowned guy who once was on Atheistically Speaking and single-handedly got it ended for good. Note this previous statement may not be true. He guest starred on Wayward Atheists and was so good that they bought the Dustin even though they were getting the commentary for free. Welcome to the show, Dustin.
That is quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
I had to get over the, yeah. I think it's every other week we try to do a show and there's technical issues. So yeah, we're a little late for the live listeners too. That's like a record. So watch out, everybody. And I'm sorry, Dustin. I did listen to some Wayward Atheists, and I didn't get any good out of context quotes. So you're gonna have to create some in the next hour. So you've been I'm duly challenged.
Oh man, if you haven't found something taken out of context, you haven't dug too hard. Like I say some fairly controversial things pretty often.
Well, we'll get there.
You let me down.
Oh no, end of the episode maybe. So you were talking about when we were chatting before the show about your upbringing. So what was that like? Seems like you had a dark path. To use a word that's part of your name.
Right. Well, I was born Dustin Dark. Just to draw a line real quick, that's not my legal name. My legal name is Dustin Green. I go by Dustin Dark because it's just the name I prefer. It's what I was born with. I was adopted as Green when I was 7. Parents lost custody of me and my older brother when I was 2 and he was 4. The details of which, I hear conflicting stories. So let's just say there's a lot of drugs and some abuse, and custody was not held. And it was a battle. Like my father kidnapped me at one point when I was about 3 and held me for a while, but eventually he moved on to get married a few more times and have some more kids to hold the attention, I suppose. I was adopted by my mother's parents. They got custody of me immediately, and they waited 5 years to adopt me and my brother, which is where I get the name from. And they're a different kind of people, I would say. They grew up in southern rural Alabama during the 40s and 50s. It's my grandparents. My father was illiterate, but let's not say too terribly much. 4th, 5th grade or so. Even though she succeeded as a business owner quite a bit, violence was the solution to most childhood ailments in my family. That was the way it tended to go most of the time. So yeah, that was the early years. Very bad neighborhood, a lot of seclusion. I went to nothing but Christian schools because mother's oldest son was involved in some violence with some black kids and was put in the hospital. So she just took all of her kids out of public school. The racial strife, I would say. I know, a bit stacked. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the Christian schooling. Yeah, some people say they get a degree in like political science, underwater basket weaving, and assume that piece of paper is worthless. So you say you actually hold an actual worthless piece of paper? What was
I do.
High school like?
Okay, so I went to 3 separate Christian schools. One that was elementary, 2nd grade, and I think there was only for me, it was only like 4 classrooms, and the school went all the way through high school. They're grouped, 2, 3, 4 grades in a classroom, and they would do what's called paces. And there's a teacher that watches everybody. It's really a terrible way to go. And then I went to a little more conventional school, and the rest of them were just 2 classes together at a time, all the way through, and it was all churches. My family wasn't very religious, but my schools were ungodly. That was the main point of you being there. Was not to learn any sort of education, but to learn how to be a proper Christian and how to spread the faith. It was almost a training factory.
Yeah, I remember I moved. Parents moved me down to Nashville, and the first year I was like in third grade. It actually was a split second and third grade class where the teacher would give us an assignment and then go teach the other half. And after that, parents were like, "Yeah, you're out of here." So, but to continue that all the way through, like you really weren't even getting much teaching, were you?
No, I think my senior year I had my own classroom, and we started out with 10 people and ended up with 5 at the end of the year. People just got expelled for corrections. I got expelled myself. It was a very similar situation that gets me in trouble in the atheist community. Sometimes I ask a lot of questions, and not a terrible team player. I tend to go against the grain a lot of the times, and have a dark sense of humor. And even though I was a very devout Christian, and I was even chaplain at my high school, they accused me of being a cult leader, of starting a cult in their school, and they expelled me and my girlfriend and our friends out of the school. The actual phrasing on the paperwork was a satanical cult. It shows the line of education for the principal to be writing that.
But you didn't even, so you got accused of it, but you didn't actually get to start a cult? Did you feel like you missed out?
No, and this is really what it was. I would ask all the questions all the time and question authority whenever I felt like it was appropriate to do so, just like I would do now. And I legitimately wanted to be a good person and to understand the Bible and the religion. So when these many contradictions come up, I wanted fucking answers, and they didn't most of the time. A lot of the time, actually, they would just take it as me being unruly, as a bad person, even though I was legitimately just trying to get to the bottom of everything.
Did anyone ever kind of help you out with that, or even try to answer your questions?
I mean,
get any kind of good runaround?
I was taught a lot of Christian apologetics. I had a lot of good Bible teachers, I would say, growing up. One particular, the principal of my high school when I started the first few years, his name was Mike Harrison. He ended up leaving and was a missionary in Honduras for about 10 years. He did a lot of good work out there, built a lot of wells and fed a lot of people, spread his ignorance, but he did some good along with it. And he actually taught me a lot of what I know now about debate and logical fallacies. He just coupled them with Christian apologetics, which in time, though, as I went through and I had these arguments with other Christians and with non-believers, it starts to fall apart. And, so I guess he really did me quite a favor.
Well, do you think it helps with, and I'll say a buzzword, empathy, when, you've had that experience of being on the other side?
Empathy towards who? Like, what do you mean?
Well, I guess if you now as an atheist talking to Christians, knowing kind of what it's like on that side.
I can talk them through my disbelief a lot better than I think a lot of people can. I think that eases me out quite a bit because I know what they believe, particularly if I know what denomination they are locally here. If they're a Southern Baptist, I know that they believe certain things like I did, that I was taught, that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, that every word in it is truth and infallible, and that the answers and secrets of life are in there. Believe that very much when I was a kid. Into my teenage years, I would argue with other Christians that believe that, well, you take parts of it and you don't take others, and is God all powerful? Is my soul writing on this book? Is this how I don't go to hell? How would he not make sure the truth got in here, and the unambiguous truth? Right? Why would half of it be allegory and we have to figure that out, and half of it be fact if it's that important? It didn't make sense to me. And to me, the Bible was either a 100% or a 0 thing. And after spending enough time arguing about it, it ended up being a 0 thing. that was the first thing that started pushing me out of religion.
But when you were in high school at the particular, you were actually it was kind of like at a church as opposed to being
Yes.
at school. So it was the church that you belonged to, but you also were being educated there, right?
Not exactly, actually. The school has a church, and you don't have to attend that church, but you did have to attend church. And I'll say that some of the best people I've ever known. My 3rd and 4th grade teacher, because that's the way it worked, was a lady named Miss King. I'm not gonna give her first name, but she was a very, very good person. And her husband was a preacher at a Baptist church out in the county, right on the outside of the city limits. And I actually didn't go to church despite going to Christian schools. I didn't go to church until about 5th grade when she was no longer my teacher. And I really just went so I could go and see her. Despite being adopted, no one ever really claimed me and my brother. For a while, we were raised by her aunt, and then she got married and had her own kids and has her own business. And our adopted mother was always very busy running her business. And have you ever seen like the Royal Tenenbaumers? Like the guy introduces his kids, like, these are my children, and this is my adopted daughter. And it was very much that type of thing with my mother. She would, these are my kids. Well, they're my adopted kids. My daughter had some problems, and I'm having to take care of them. And it was always more of a burden. So I feel like I'm getting kind of lost in this. Where are we going?
I think we were just talking about whether
it's hard to get lost in the past.
Whether your school was kind of the church was one of the same.
Yeah.
So the one that you
I continued to go to that
grade,
school.
did you stay at the same church? Did you kind of bounce around?
I did. That was the only church that I was ever like a full-time going member at. So I went there, and all through Sunday school and that type of thing, and children's churches, they would call it, when you sit in the back. And then when I got expelled from school, my preacher, Mr. King, he came out to represent me when there was like this hearing where they were discussing how evil I may or may not be and whether or not they should expel me. It was like a little tribunal of some teachers' parents and some people from the church that ran the school. And I got in a guitar when I was 12 and didn't do much with it, but I got a bass when I was 15, and that really clicked for me. And here I am about a year and a half later. And he says, well, maybe you should come and play with my son. He sings and plays the church. And I went to school with the guys a year older than me. I went to the same schools. And that was kind of the way that I redeemed myself in the Christian community is I joined the worship band at my church. And suddenly I was invited back to my school the next year, to my mother's delight, I would say. Not so much to mine, because now I get to go back to the people that were pretty sure I was Satan last year.
That's interesting that you get out of being considered a devil worshiper by playing a musical instrument.
It's funny how that works, man. They saw it as me going into service. That's like when you take part in the service. Have you ever been religious yourself?
No, have not.
No. Well, like to be one of the people that's actually taking part in the service and carrying part of it along, bringing a talent or a service, like you're instantly on the end. I mean, like I'm providing a free service and I'm bringing people in. Frankly, like I ended up leading a youth band on Wednesday nights. I did it for 4 years for free. I would add. They put me in charge of a Sunday school class a little while after I had graduated high school, and it was like middle school boys, and it was a bad fit. Because I'm too blunt of a person for like tween-age boys. It was not a good fit, and it was terribly awkward because parents would complain a lot, and of course I had that Puritanist view of the Bible that I was taught at that church. Like if it's which books do you not want your children to hear about? Which stories are not appropriate? Like I'm reading out of the Bible and you're getting offended at what they're hearing. How am I the offensive one?
That's a good point. Yeah. So what denomination was this that you were in?
My church was a non-denomination, like a independent Baptist, and they joined the Southern Baptist Convention right before I left, which I was very unhappy about. I've always had problems with like this top-down control, and now we're paying money to another organization, and they're sending people to talk to us, and I didn't like that. Like there's not supposed to be someone between you and God, and that really pissed me off. But the school that I went to was Pentecostal, the one that I graduated from. It was Church of Assembly of God Pentecostal. It was like the church I attended was a person there, let's say. And the other church was very mixed and rambunctious, like a black church that was half white almost. If you understand the division in the way they worship and go through service, it's still segregated here.
Well, that's true, and you think more. Well, you used to think more like black churches being the ones that played the music, because I swear, growing up, not that I went to church a lot, but when I did, no music. Now, if you go to church, non-Catholic, I guess, division, they're going to have a band and they're going to be singing a song where all the lyrics are Jesus. And that's just kind of how it goes. So I was intrigued to see you growing up. Of course, you're a little bit younger than me, but you know, that was like a mainstay out of it.
Let me tell you, a lot of people come for the music. A lot of people like come up to you and shake your hand. Like, you know, I come every week, but you know, I get to hear some good music and the message is nice. But you know, the reason I come to this church is the band. There's a lot of that. So that's nice. Gave me a lot of experience too. And a guy ended up coming that I went to high school with and invited me to join a metal band that I did some minor touring with, like weekend warrior type of thing. We played, I don't know, 50, 60 shows in a couple of 3 states, just calling places and booking and sending shitty demos, and they would let us come and you know, play and open up for people. It was a lot of fun. Nominally Christian, like family was so religious they would only let him be in a band for a Christian band. So we were like, you know, Christian wink, nod, nod. Which is what a lot of those bands are.
How are the outfits in a Christian metal band?
How the
outfits? What? With the dress up like Striper, or do you just kind of come as you are?
Well, it wasn't. I take it you're not a metal person, and frankly, I wasn't at the time. But I took a crash course just so I could join this band. They just seemed like a fun group of guys, and we were the right kind of trouble, I guess. That we never got arrested or anything, but we had a great deal of fun. And the shows are just kind of a dance that turns into a fight, and the music just makes you feel, you know, big and tall and strong. And as far as clothes, man, it's just they dress just like everybody else. There's no division. Really, you can even look at the lyrics and not know the difference between a lot of the Christian and non-Christian, like what would be classified as hardcore metal band. That was going on in the like 2006 to 2008, which is when I was in this band.
So if you had like a power ballad, it'd be more about God than, you know, a woman, then that kind of thing.
We wouldn't have a power ballad. It's all screaming and breakdowns.
I guess that's
heavy.
That's more probably Motley Crue style than Metallica or Anthrax kind of thing. I don't know.
You're stepping all over the 80s.
I had a friend who was throwing out some nice 80s music, and I was like remembering Dawkins and how I really was into them in the 80s, maybe even 90s, and AC/DC types. But there's some that they just play fast. They don't vary the pace. It's pretty much the same thing all the way through. So what happened? What made it fall apart? Oh wait, what's the name of the band? I gotta hear this.
Oh no!
Oh no! Is there Google possibility here? You can make it up. It'd be pretty awesome.
There's YouTube videos that are not so flattering, let's say. Man, I might take the YouTube videos down and put up the audio because that's less embarrassing, but still embarrassing.
Wow.
We were not good. We were fun.
It could be anything you were like, oh, I'm embarrassed about it. You're like, we found something.
You found it, yeah.
This is a deep cut. Patreons only, and probably not even you.
Deep cut Patreons only, and not even me. Fuck it, man. As These Hands Bleed was the terrible band that I was in.
Oh, I like that.
You can find It can. You see, it's all about being ambiguous. It's so that you're not pushing away any crowd, and kids get to come, which is mostly what the audience is. Like, I'd say 13 to 20. And I was probably 17, 18 when I was doing. I'm sorry, not 17, 18, 19, 20. I was right at the top end. I was always the older guy around, and then I got the fuck out of there when it was no longer the right time. And we just all went on to do our own things. I think you started to ask me that earlier, like what happened. And and a little bit of drugs got involved too. That's probably a little bit of it there.
That's hard to believe that such a thing would happen in the South or in a band. You were good Christian boys.
Oh yeah. There's no musicians getting high in America. It's not the way we do it here.
So what kind of do you recall during your Christian era? Like, what type of apologist were you? Were you like in the Ken Ham, William Lane Craig kind of school?
I was taught some of that. Like, there wouldn't be any school. You would mix a little bit of this and a little bit of that, just like I would still do now. On the other side, I take the arguments that make sense and I drop the ones that don't. I was definitely under even though the Bible is 100%. Yeah, God, how do you deal with the dinosaurs? That was a hard one. I was like, well, it says in the beginning, and then God starts making things, and you don't know how much time occurs between here and there. Like, what is a day? Blah blah blah. Like, you just muddy the waters and straw man and distract and do a little jingle over here and slip a hand in a puppet and hope they don't call you on it. To be honest, that's why it's hard to be an honest person and to keep doing it. It's what got me out of it.
Well, I was wondering. I was wondering.
A big part of it.
You talked about getting to be very deep into a church, and the normal story is you're invited into this church, and it's a very inviting environment, and they make you feel loved, and you're part of the community, and you're shaking your head for the audio people. You were telling me that the powers that be at your church didn't trust you, so
sure didn't.
What was about that? Was it, I'm going to blame the victim. Fallacy time. No, but what happened there?
Well, like I said, I asked a lot of questions. I was very hard-headed, and I never just went along for the sake of going along, and that doesn't gain trust. Okay, now that in the leadership at the church that I attended, the pastor and the deacons, pretty good understanding. They saw me as eccentric, I guess would be the word, and they saw that I had eccentric friends. They even told me that I should probably start a ministry going for, I wish I still remember the word that they used, people like me, basically, since I had an ability of finding and bringing very odd people into the church. And they meant that in the nicest way, but looking back, ooh, that's rough. That's a rough one. I don't know, man. I never felt comfortable with the people that were actually in the church because the whole thing is just so judgmental. Like, I don't know what people are talking about with this whole accepting love thing. Like, and maybe it was that all of my religious figures were quite literally authority in my day-to-day warm embrace, but it was always a terror to me. Like, I would pray and feel like, just try to feel so hard for something, and you would be told to for hours, almost meditate on, when they're playing music and people are laying their hands on you and talking in tongues and shit, and it just creates this environment where you like there's going to be some sort of reaction. It seems like. And it's terribly manipulative. That was a Pentecostal church, to be clear. The Baptist church takes part in none of that. They don't believe in speaking in tongues or any of that. It was interesting to be split between the two as well. That very starkly believe the other one is wrong about some very obvious things.
I wonder if that kind of helped your journey out of church, being in two different denominations, and how they don't like each other very much, even though they have a lot in common.
That's probably it. I said this on when I was interviewed on the Wayward Atheists the first time, but I was told by one particular douchebag Sunday school teacher that black people wouldn't be in heaven. And that was some terrible shit to hear. But you don't blame that on the church at the time. Like, that guy was legitimately just an asshole. Like, he made fun of me when I started to play guitar, because I've always been a little overweight and fun of the whole plight of that. Anyway, so it was never a welcome environment, which is probably one of the biggest things that pushed me away. They pushed me away because I questioned, and I pushed them away because they pushed me away. That was definitely a part of it. And a big stencher for leaving is I started a folk band, and so here I'm in 3 bands, and I'm talking to the drummer in the metal band, and he's just like, you have 3 bands. Why are you going there and playing? Why are you doing it? And I was like, you're right. And then when I stopped having music to play, I stopped having a reason to be there.
But was it just a quick break, or did it take time for you to just decide you wanted to get out of this particular church?
So I left home where my mom's not going to make me go, and I left just slept in my car for a while, my truck that I had at the time. Stayed at a few friends' houses so I could find my own place, and it was pretty quick. I went to him and I told him, I went to the guy that sang in the morning band, and I told him that I needed a break, that I was going to take some time off, and maybe I'd come back and maybe I wouldn't. And I went back one time a couple months later just to talk to him about, hey, I don't think I'm going to be coming back. I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I believe this. And we had a pretty civil discussion. The preacher was more reasonable than the son was, I think. I mean, he studies that Bible every day. Surely he saw everything that I saw. And I'm actually not sure if he's still doing it. I heard he quit, so I should look him up.
Once you got out of the church, was that it? All those relationships were done?
Pretty much on the spot. And it was at the same time, I started smoking weed and doing some drugs. For a long time, nothing that I would call heavy. I hate that word, but no heroin, coke like that. Just smoked weed for a while. Dropped acid once. Man, that makes you look at life differently. If you've never done something like that, I can't overstate the ability of that it has to sit you beside yourself to examine what's going on. And that was pretty crucial. I had to go through a series of reasoning to let myself down easy. And it started with statements like, maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. It seems like aliens are just as likely a creator as some sort of all-knowing, always there deity. And I went through a lot of terrible ideas for a while there, conspiracy theories and bad science, because I didn't have an education of any significance. But I learned a lot through arguing and talking to people that were willing to converse with someone that didn't have, and were willing to break things down and explain them in a simple way. And that did me a lot of good. And then finding the skeptic community, finding atheist podcasts, did me a lot of good. Honestly, hearing bad ideas mocked is a very powerful tool. There's all these tiny instances I can think about. The first time I met an atheist in person, I knew the guy for a while. I was hanging out with him and smoking weed, a pretty cool guy. And he's like, no, I don't go to church. I don't really believe. And a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy for that around here, but it just doesn't make sense to me. And I was like, holy shit, people can just not do it and just not believe. I'd never imagined that. Even my parents weren't religious, but they're gonna, God is a thing. They just don't know what the fuck's in the book. And that was that's why, man, among many reasons why I'm not going to be silent about any idea that I have. I'd rather hash it out to this day. I'd rather hash it out. I'd rather express the bad idea and be corrected. And I try to be honest when I am corrected. And I try to be honest when I'm not as well. And it caused a lot of problem, but it's done me a lot of good. And, fuck it, I guess, I don't know a better way to put it. Like what's the harm in having conversations and being honest with each other? Like, good God, shouldn't that be a big part of everybody's day? I don't understand why we run from hard conversations. No, I guess not forever. And I'll say this too. Like I mentioned earlier on that I grew up secluded. My initial outlet in life, and still to this day, was the internet, was message forums and IRC chat. Like I started on dial-up, back in 1999 when I was very young and built my own computer and got myself on the internet, and the conversation has always been a very deep hobby of mine. It was a way to pass the time and understand people as much as music was. A stress reliever to me, and it still is.
Yeah, it's intriguing, the difference, because internet was something that kind of got started when I was in college age and then beyond, but to have it as an option a little bit younger would probably affect things differently, for sure.
I mean, I was in the internet subculture so long that I have a completely different understanding of what the word troll means than what it does to the modern lingo. Like that, I think that was a big miscommunication in a previous conversation that I had. Like, this is where I know the term from. Do you know what IRC chat is? An internet relay chat.
Was that just the text only version back in the early internet days, or?
Yes, it was, and you had to download an actual DOS executable that would run on your thing, and someone had to stay in the room to keep it open, or it would shut down. So everyone could always come back and hang out with their friends in this room, and that person tended to be the troll. They're the gatekeeper. They would have admin's ability. They control the conversation, who's allowed in and who isn't, and that type of thing. And it's that idea of taking control of a comment thread or taking control of a conversation and getting what I think should come out of it for myself. And I get that's a little bit of a selfish action, but like I said, it took me from the earth is 6,000 years old to being an active member in the atheist skeptic community like I am.
So the internet was very instrumental in your education and your becoming more fully realized as a atheist and a political person.
Oh, it's the sole source. Like I never went to a legitimate school. I never went to an accredited school. I never got any kind of accredited education at all. And I have friends advise me sometimes, like, hey man, you shouldn't talk about that. But like, I don't know. Once again, I just don't like to be dishonest. And two, I think that's important for people to understand what these types of schools can put people in, and B, that you need a centralized education necessarily to be articulate or take part in the conversation or have your own opinions or be a fully actualized adult. I've had a lot of problems, but worse if I didn't take the time to make sure I understood. If I just accepted that it didn't happen,
Well, what are your thoughts on our new Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos? Because she seems to want kids to have the same kind of upbringing that you had.
Yes, I think that is. Let me say this very clearly into the microphone. One of the worst picks that he did, and I really, really, really hate Jeff Sessions. So for me to put her right up there next to Jeff Sessions says a lot.
Well, yeah, he's on Alabama's own too.
Yes, he is. I've had personal interactions with him before. I was involved in a. Okay, so one of the ways I did find meaning in my life, and frankly, how I grasped leaving religion was to get involved in politics in a significant way. And at the time, I didn't know Republican from Democrat. That just wasn't my shit. I was very much a low information person on that type of thing. And I got involved in drug law reform, specifically locally medical marijuana, but eventually drug law reform in general. Which might explain why I'm so comfortable on taking all the uncomfortable positions in politics. I started there. I started in a hard sell. When I started debating politics, it was like, let me explain to you why we should legalize heroin and cocaine. Because I think there is a very good, legitimate argument for that. But you got to know how to have the conversation. You got to have the right facts at hand. And now is clearly not the time. But I think that's another reason why I'm never afraid to jump in there. I started with controversial. I've always been that way. I almost can't help it.
Well, it's true that the conversations that seemed hard 20 years ago are okay now. Like even the concept of gay marriage, like 10 years ago, was like, no way, that isn't happening in my lifetime. And marijuana, which is seeping into the states, although it seems like Jeff Sessions kind of wants to reverse that. Hopefully, it looks like he's not going to be successful. But I was surprised. I mean, I live in Georgia. I'm the next state over. There actually was a discussion about medical marijuana in our state, and I was kind of shocked because we're in the South. This isn't what we do. But the fact that it's on the table now is because people took it on when it was a fringe idea.
Right.
That's not even a question. So I'm a terrible interviewer. Take it as
I think that you're agreeing with me a little bit. Give me a little legitimacy for pushing the bounds of conversation. I've roped you in a little bit. Sorry about that, man. Once again, and I try to do it in, I don't spring up on people that aren't there to have a political conversation and fuck with them, right? Like I'm in groups that are for political discussion. I follow podcasts that are for political discussion. If you're on my Facebook, you know what's coming because that's what I do. That's what I do. Like if there's something that I don't understand or disagree with, I have a conversation about it every time, no matter what it's about. I don't care. I'll talk about anything. Like I'll ask you why you have the terrible ideas that you have and try to explain to you why they're wrong. And I really don't care how terrible they are until I realize you're just someone that is not going to take any headway at all, and then I just move on to the next one.
Yeah, I was wondering sometimes where the point is where you have to just give up in a way. Like you only have so much time.
Well. I'm a single man with an internet connection. I have a fair amount of free time to message some people on Facebook or have some arguments. In case anyone's wondering, I'm deep down in the basement, about 30 feet below. It's dark, it's damp, and I've never seen the light of day. I just argue on Facebook all day.
You're one of those guys. Finally, someone who lives in the basement. It's about time.
Someone that'll own up to it. Yeah.
It's about time we heard from the other side.
Right. You have heard of us, and here we are. And no, man, I'll tell you what. If you want to see the underbelly of the internet, I can give you some links and I can give you some names, and a lot of the political discourse happening right now, I think will make a lot more sense to a lot of people. Like It's I don't want to get into politics too much, but it just seems like central news and central information has completely lost control with the internet, and that's why I spend so much time there. Like I talk to everyone from alt-right to alt-light to alt-left to MGTOW. You know what MGTOW is?
No.
It is men going their own way. You see, we have built I'm using that word very loosely. Humankind. Men going their own way have decided that the rape is not favorable for men to marry or have children, so they don't. Let me rephrase that. Don't fuck women. That's a political movement now, brought to you by the internet. And if you think that this is a fringe thing, millions of people tune in and listen to these guys. They go to these blogs and talk. And frankly, if you don't know that they're there and you don't even understand, like, and their arguments pop up, man, they show up everywhere.
Well, I mean, I've heard of,
you know where they're coming from.
I've heard of like men's rights advocates, but not that way. But I can,
and
then see that happening. It makes sense that some people.
There's three what I would say groups that are concerned with men's rights specifically. That's MGTOW, and then there's the red pill genre of MRAs, and then there's the Voice for Men, which they both have their own perspective. It's almost like, feminism breaks down into these different brackets of thought, and so does men's rights. And to be honest, and to say that they have no arguments and none of it makes sense, that they're just men hating. I'm sorry, not men hating. Women hating sleazeballs. I think gives a discredit to them as people. A lot of them are. Don't get me wrong. But there's some actually really good points in there too. And I think if more people were to go in and that makes sense and take them away from them, it'll take away a lot of their steam. If we were to actually work with them and try, because a lot of it isn't hate and a lot of it is quite legitimate, but we're not even willing to talk to each other anymore at all.
Yeah, there is the ease of kind of throwing somebody away because of one opinion. Man, that happens a lot now.
It does.
It's impossible. I almost wish the atheist, maybe humanist movement could lead this way, because they make the joke that getting atheists to do stuff is like herding cats. No one herds cats. Get them when they're asleep. That's how you do it. But the point is, we should kind of embrace that we have these differences, yet we still can get together from time to time,
right,
to get things done. Because this big Democrat, Republican, it's all kind of BS anyway. And to put somebody in one box or another, yeah, you're probably missing out with some people. You're not missing out. You're done with them. But with some people, yeah, it's like you got one thing you don't agree with. It's like you don't root for the same football team. You can probably still have a beer together.
You're very correct in a lot of that, and it's. I get that we're political opponents, but at the same time, they're almost universally human beings on the other side, even if they're bad ones. And most of the time, it's just a matter of perspective. How much time you spend conservative politicians, and we hear these crazy clips, and I'm guilty of it. We bring the worst of the worst to the forefront in the atheist community and beat them with sticks. And that's literally the segment that I do in our show, is I get Alex Jones and Rick Wiles, and then we talk about how crazy they are. But a lot of that is strawmanning the other side. A lot of it is strawmanning the other side. There's a lot of nuanced arguments on the other side that while I don't disagree with, some of them I agree with and some of them I disagree with. And once again, if we were to listen to them more, we can build a stronger case on our side. Fundamentally, it seems to me that the divide in the United States comes down to women rights and gay rights, LGBT, abortions, raising the minimum wage, and I want to always vote on that side. But if they could also not be hateful, that'd be great.
It's hard not to be these days, it seems.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what the other side does too. They don't believe in these key issues, and they really hate that the Republicans are so hateful. But you have to vote on what you think are the core issues, and a lot of things become peripheral. And then these other smaller special interests take it personally when everybody doesn't vote in their interests. But man, we have a world to run almost in America. Fucking Christ. When we vote, it changes every fucking thing. We might go into World War III off this last vote. That'd be nice. Well, I'm sorry. I went dark there. My mistake.
Somebody who does the shopping in the family, I was at Target, and I always get to see the tabloids. And it's weird that the National Enquirer's become the official mouthpiece of the Trump administration, and they've actually started covering it with see-through. But it actually said World War III is about to happen. And I'm like, that's not good. whether you've decided to just go for it on this guy or not, okay, all right. Everybody's thinking it. Do we have to say it?
Everything
it's funny. It's dark humor.
Which is my favorite kind of humor, let's be honest, it's a bit of escapism. It's a bit of a coping mechanism, dark humor for a lot of people. It's a way a lot of men specifically handle the worst things in life, is to make jokes. But it almost makes them approachable in the same way that I want to have these hard conversations. I think that joking about these tough issues makes them more accessible. It kind of pries people open a little bit.
Now you're just dying to talk about all these things. So It seems like a natural connection.
I'm actually trying not to. Yeah, I just go to him. I came here and I'm like, yeah.
It's a natural connection for you to get on a microphone and talk. So I'm kind of surprised. Now, this might not have been the first time you've done a podcast or been in a podcast, but how did you get kind of hooked up with Wayward Atheists? You weren't trying to jump the border, were you? Because they're a bunch of Canadians, right? And get on the show, like kind of guest star, and then becoming a regular.
Okay, so I met Mike in another podcast group. Mike Fowler, the guy that I was on Thomas's podcast with a little while ago, for those who know what I'm talking about. And we were argued with each other, argued alongside each other sometimes. He was open for conversation, so I tended to keep him around. And he was a listener and friends with Dave Edwards. And I think Dave found me, arguing with or against, like I said, just having these conversations on Facebook, and he added me, and, that I'm having the conversations with him. And after a while, he just invited me on his show, and it felt well enough that we, me and Dave and Ed click, I think, personality-wise, pretty good. We all have these fundamental beliefs about hashing it out and talking about the difficult subjects and coming at it from an outside perspective, and the importance of free speech and human rights and individual rights specifically. So I don't know. It just worked out. I think we haven't talked about it much, but a dark past, and we kind of touched on mine a little bit too. I've committed some crimes and been arrested and had my hard go of it as an adult myself. So I think we connect on that level as well. And Ed was a Mormon well into his adult years, and I think we connect on that deep indoctrination level there too. And once again, with just the willing and desire to talk. Most of what we do is talk and argue and disagree, come to some sort of agreement together and move on to the next subject. Like it's very comfortable and natural. It's clicked.
Is it tough to do a show when you have like 4 co-hosts and then you have usually guests on there? Do you feel like it's tough, or do you have the, kind of have it organized so everybody gets to kind of say their piece?
Well, like I said, particularly the 3 of us have these conversations a lot. We also get together and talk on Skype a lot during the week. We'll Skype UFC fights and hang out and talk. And of course, politics creeps into most everything while we're doing things. So we have a lot of practice off mic. And Dave, as he calls himself on the show, as we call him, he is a much more private person. It isn't quite the conversationalist that we are. So he doesn't take up a whole lot of time on the show. He'll almost wait till we get done and then come in with his perspective towards the end, which is also a role I appreciate quite a bit, to sit and wait till you have these multi perspectives before you come in with yours. I appreciate that about him a bit. I don't know. We're thinking about changing some formats and this, that, and the other, but we'll see what happens. It's all up in the air.
It's you late Friday night people. I just can't keep up. Like, I was invited to do a show that started like 11 o'clock on Saturday. I'm like, dude, I'll be either drunk or asleep by then. And I think I was probably a little both. Oh. It's hard to do. That's what I do. Well, I'd say early bird special, but I'm in the middle, 7 o'clock your time, 8. That seemed to work.
Dave has a special needs son. And he has to physically lay down with his son every night to get him to go to sleep. And he's also a small business owner, puts in 50, 60 hours a week on top of doing the podcasting. And he's the glue of the show. He brought us all together. He collected us all almost like a sports draft and brought us together. So we do, we work with it, of course. And we don't get too much complaints from the guests. We do get asked a lot. Do you guys always do this late? Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
You do. Yeah, I think when I interviewed Dave, I think it had to be delayed a little bit because of his son, and it's just like, hey, life happens, This isn't an official radio program, so we don't have an official time. I like to be loose that way because it's just how it works in life. So what was it like when you did the episode opening the book on Jordan Peterson? And first of all, who is Jordan Peterson? Because I think some people will know, but probably a good idea to get a little background there.
Jordan Peterson is a professor of psychology at University of Toronto. He's also an author, and he's been there quite a while, tenured, I'm pretty sure. So what happened is, I'm pulling this back from October. Bill C-17 or 31, something like that, come up, and it was a free speech bill. That's not an accurate description. That's the way we approached it. It was putting in protections for transgender for transgender people, and he put it off, and a lot of people took it as forcing people to use pronouns, which I wouldn't accept, but that's not the way it all turned out. We continued to investigate for a while until we got to the bottom of things, which once again I think is the whole conversation we have. I don't know, that was less a part of the episode as much as the Berkeley situation was. I feel like the main part that I come on to talk about, because it hit me so close to home, living in what was once a segregated state, that people were drawing these lines of telling white kids to walk around before they can get into school. Go back and listen to the episode. I would say anybody listening, Triggered by Free Speech, on Wayward Atheists, to get the full context of the conversation.
Number 23, and I'll include it in the show notes.
Oh, there you go.
Berkeley's been like nonstop controversy for the past many months.
Yes, it was almost prophetic that's what I come on about, because another thing that I tend to focus on a lot on the show is Antifa, which they seem to be most active at Berkeley in California. So
yeah, I'm a little intrigued by them. I don't know. It almost seems like you have this college campus, which is sort of neutral territory, and then you get like Trump supporters, possibly white nationalists, Nazis, whatever you want to call them, and then the anti-fascists come in all ready for a fight, basically, and a fight they often get. And the students there, I don't know how much they're involved in either side necessarily.
Some of them are definitely students, and I personally talk to and try to hash things out with some Antifa people that go to Berkeley on my Facebook page and some of the groups that I'm on. Some of them are, and some of them aren't, and they have some loose connections to groups like By Any Means Necessary. If you don't know about them, you should probably look them up. They're a bit of a cult. That has definitely joined Antifa. I don't know how much Antifa follows them, but they have joined in on the fight. I told you before I got into this that I would try not to get into politics, but they suck me in. I try not, and it's metal to magnet.
Well, it's a lot like when people talk about religious beliefs, like you can try to believe something, but it is what you believe, and what you're into life-wise or what subjects interest you, they just do. So you kind of have to go with it. They just
bubble up. Yeah. And okay, here's brass tacks when it comes to Antifa. They're absolutely anti-capitalist, pro-communist, anarchist movement. And that's by their own profession. They believe in the use and the beauty of violence in the political discussion. It is a carryover from a European group that actually started legitimately fighting Nazis and fascists in Italy after World War II, and antifascista. And they still have a movement in Europe that has kind of devolved into the same, we're going to use violence to solve a lot of our problems. And I see a lot of liberals, classic liberals, and what I would call new social justice type of liberals, both need to understand that they hold ideas like the liberal gets the bullet too. If that they spray paint that at a lot of their events before they leave. I don't think people understand exactly how dangerous it is. They're so happy to see them fighting the right-wing people, the free speech people, the Trump people, however you want to put them, Nazis. Maybe they're Satan himself incarnate, whatever. If they're not starting the violence and you show up with the intention of starting violence in the political structure in the streets in the United States, I don't have a lot of sympathy for you. Period. Like that seems obvious to me. You're starting the violence. And do you not understand that legitimizes violence coming back from the other side, and it's not going to be college kids. Like now these events, I am legitimately nervous about 3 days from now, May the 5th. Milo is going to be there stirring shit, and Antifa is going to show up.
He's going to Berkeley, right? Is that actually happening?
He's going to Berkeley. It hasn't been canceled yet, as far as I know. And he is a professional shit stirrer. He is imp incarnate, Loki himself, I would say. And he's going to antagonize these people. He's going to antagonize them, and they show up with M80s. They show up with rocks and glass bottles and sticks and mace, and attack anybody they feel like is not on their side, which is most people.
And we've already had a Milo supporter shoot somebody.
Yes. And to be honest, it's expected. Would you expect to keep showing up at political demonstrations with violence and no one ever bring a gun?
Not in this country.
And frankly, not in most countries. Eventually,
it's like, with the laws have, because there's actually a law pending in the state of Georgia to allow like open carry on college campuses, and it's like, well, that doesn't really matter. People carry guns all over the place, so a college campus is going to stop them. So,
we just got rid of concealed permits. They're gone. We just got rid of concealed permits in Alabama. You can just be away.
Impressed.
That's business. Yeah, I guess. That's another heated discussion I've had about that with different, both sides. I don't know. That's a hard discussion. The gun one is tough. It's one that I don't pick too much sides on. I definitely win right, but there has to be restrictions as well. And there are, so tighten them, I would say.
Yeah, it's almost such a big part of our culture to say, "Oh, we're getting rid of all guns." I don't even know I know some people believe it now. Now that
there is no motherfucking way.
Diving into the deep waters, you find people believe anything. So people can believe
yes
that they'd like guns to be banned for it to actually become reality in this country.
Yes, and you hear logic like
Australia kind of law not happening.
Oh no. We can't stop people from having cell phones in prison. You think you're gonna take guns out of America? I don't think you understand the ingenuity of people that one, want to make money, and two, just want to do what the fuck they want to do, man.
Well, that's definitely
I'll say this as that's human. That's human. People are gonna do what they want to do, man. Like, does drug legalization work anywhere? Like, where have we stomped out drug use? I mean, once again, not even in prisons. When you're under 24 lock and key, you're under surveillance, let's say constantly, shooting dope like a motherfucker. People are going to do what they're going to do. So when it comes to the gun discussion, I think the answer is the same answer with the drug discussion, that it's education. It's education and restriction, and people need to understand what a gun is, how it works, how to use it safely, and how not to. More importantly, what unsafe use is. And of course, regulations to make sure people keep them locked up and put away in the right way.
That's a bit that always kind of shocked me, is like the NRA. Of course, the NRA kind of just they're already living in like their own weird reality, but just the whole, like, people not taking just a class on gun safety. I mean, you buy a computer, you want to learn to use it. You buy a gun, you want to learn to use it and to be safe, because a lot of bad things can happen with that. But there's a fight. We're talking politics. We haven't talked about, like,
I know.
Once you got out of religion, you still have the music bug in you. So how have you been able to deal with that post religion?
Okay, so let's. My life got completely out of control when I left the church. One, I was woefully undereducated and just about life in the world. It wasn't so much I didn't know, science and history and this type of thing, which I was starting to get a grasp on. I didn't understand the law and how it works and the reality of the police, or the reality of really anything. I can't stress enough how much I was locked away when I was young. The first time I went to a movie theater, I went to movie theater, it was to see Toy Story 1. I was pretty young, and my uncle, my adopted brother, come and picked me up. Knowledge, and we didn't see him for about 4 or 5 years. He wasn't allowed to come around after that. It was that much of a fallout because he had taken me and my brother to see a movie. And the second time was when my older brother, 2 years older than me, graduated from high school. So we were teenagers before we were given even the most basic type of freedom to go into the world. It's 15, 16, 17. So that really, I got into trouble with the law pretty quickly with weed. There was a short while after I joined some movements. First time was a felony arrest, and they didn't have a warrant, so I was lucky enough that it was no billed by the grand jury and thrown out. But I think that pissed off the cops in a certain way. It set up. So they came back about a year later. I had been selling some weed and things, but I knew some people at the police station, and I got a warning that they were coming. So I cleaned up my house for weeks, and there was nothing there. I'd shut down my business, which was just friends and things. I was never like turning some cash. Let's be clear about that. I don't know if you've ever smoked weed or anything like that, but a dime bag here, a quarter there. I wasn't making money. I was just helping some friends out. And Valentine's Day comes, and my best friend had Parkinson's. And he wanted to play some Madden, bring his Xbox over. So he brought some weed with him because it would calm his shakes so that he could. And we all sit there and we smoke in this dime for a little while. And I see someone outside of my window of my house. So I open the door, and there's a plainclothes officer there, right? I don't know it's an officer, but I don't know who this fuck is. So I go to slam my door, and he sticks his foot in the door. So I start to fight with the guy. And just a couple of seconds after a struggle began, and he's trying to pull a gun out, and I'm trying to keep the gun in his holster, several cops come around the corner, and that's when you just got to, I didn't realize it was you, fine gentlemen. I see you're here to arrest me. There's not much you can do then. Dear sweet Jesus, if anyone takes anything, don't fight. Don't fight, even if they're completely wrong. Sort it out in court. Go to jail. Don't get shot. Fucking Christ. And I almost got shot in that situation. I was very fortunate that didn't end to me, and they told me that. They made that very clear, that I had no business fighting this plainclothes officer that showed up at my house and started fighting with me. So there's not much there. I don't know. Like the law in Alabama is that you either have to have a scale or multiple bags or over 2 pounds of weed to be a felony. I'd been arrested before and went to all my court dates and was found innocent, or just no billed. So I had a good enough standing with the state that a misdemeanor marijuana charge, I should have just been taken in, signed my name, and went home. But they claimed they found a white powder in my bedroom that was suspicious, and that they were going to take me in for felony cocaine until they could sort out what was going on. So, they confiscate our guns and things that we had for home protection. And they took me off to jail overnight. And, you just sit there and like, cocaine. I'd never seen cocaine. I wouldn't know it if you threw it in my face from powdered sugar, particularly at that time in my life. And the kicker was I got out of jail the next day, and I had to walk home. They took my phone. I didn't have anybody's number. They fucking cut the shoes on my strings, so I had to walk barefoot. I had to walk home, and when I got there, we had been burglarized. Some guys kicked in my door shortly after I was taken to jail and tied up my brother with them and stole everything. I was, a touring musician at the time, and they stole all my instruments and my amps and my, computer and recording equipment and TVs and my buddy's Xbox that was left there after the police left. And found out about my trouble and evicted me and my brother. And word got to my job, so they drug tested me, and I lost my job. I ended up homeless with $900 in fines, added $40 to the fine every month until I got it paid, and drug tests that I had to pay for. No job. Rough times. Me and my brother found an old, shitty house, abandoned house, and boarded up the windows and boarded up the doors, and just stayed there till we got our shit together. So that's what happened to the music, to be honest. I had a very good band called Everyone Here Is Wrong. The guitar player was just a prodigy, and the woman, Kaylin Moyers, had actually toured as Annie. She was a very talented singer, and I was playing bass, which I'm much better at bass than I am at singing and playing guitar. So it was really a killer combination, and it just fell apart. It just fell apart. So then you're in the situation where, what the fuck do you do? And let's go back a little further. I bought a truck when I was in high school, and it was wrecked in Kentucky. I broke down, and it was being towed back, and it wrecked. And my mother held the insurance policy, and she kept all the money. She kept all and didn't pay me anything. I was expecting to get $4,000, so I bought a car, and I thought I'd get the money to finish the payments. And here I am, also with a $4,000 loan that I didn't expect to have. So I lost my car too, and that you saw on Facebook I just bought my car. Well, I lost it in 2011. I haven't had a car since then of my own. So it was just a giant reset. It was just, and it's hard, man. What do you say?
But have you gotten any instruments since then?
Yeah, man, I picked up a nice Sector Diamond Series. Shellback acoustic electric for $25 at a pawn shop. The good thing about being from a completely broken place is that a lot of people sell nice shit for nothing because they used to have nice things, and now they're on bad times just like you are. So it's a big equalizer in that sort of way. I got a bass a little while ago, never got an amp to go with it. I haven't had the opportunity yet. I don't think I haven't played bass in probably 5 years or so because I haven't really had a way to amplify it or anything. Maybe picked it up occasionally. I'm building back up on that. You have to take care of everything else first. So to boot, as soon as I got done paying my fines and all of that stuff, and I was getting some part-time work, an ex-girlfriend from high school looked me up, and we got back together, and that was a tragically bad decision. Tragically bad decision. Her father gave me a job, which is one of the most racist people I ever met in my life too. And I'm a brown guy dating his daughter. That wasn't the best relationship. We just fed into each other's addictions and worse personality traits. It seemed like pretty much all the time. And when she would get drunk, she would be a very violent person, very, very unreasonable, try to start fights. And despite her trying to start many fights with me, I would never fight back. You just, you try to block and get out of there and fucking run outside and try to get some help because you can't defend yourself in that situation. And the only car we had was hers, and I'm working with her dad, and I'm living in I'm renting one of their houses. So you're kind of fucked in that situation too. It was good for a few years, and I mean there was a lot of good times and we had a lot of fun, but it was mostly just getting high and fucking. I mean I don't want to be crude, but that was just a lot of the basis of the relationship. And when I left there, I had a heroin addiction, and I had casually done opiates for a while. I had been a very casual drug user and never had any significant problems from the drugs themselves. I was an advocate for safe use, and I still am an advocate for safe use. Let me be clear, don't break the laws in your states or province or anywhere that you live, but I am an advocate for the safe use of drugs rather than the outlawing of drugs. And I started out using heroin to treat some kidney stones that I had, and I just took it for too long, and I found myself in an addiction, and my girlfriend was taking it with me, and we ended up in this. I'm digging for the right word. I hate that I'm missing it. Where you just reinforce what is it? Codependent. It was a codependent relationship, and you know, I had a very strained relationship with my family. We hadn't talked the whole 4 years I lived with the girl. We didn't talk. You know, and I didn't get into that very much, but it's just that could be a show of its own. We don't have time. This is going to be a terrible thing to say I got fortunate about. So brace yourself. But I got fortunate that my oldest brother, adopted brother, killed himself in 2014. My birth mother, who was the only person I had contact with in my family, said, you know, look, your mom's trying to get in touch with you. You know, Tim shot himself. So that brought everything back together where I had an out. You know, like I had to leave with like a minimum wage job at Walmart and no car and no belongings. But I left and I stayed with my mom for a little while, which it was literally a couple months. We can't be around each other. So I moved out here to Tuscaloosa. The singer in my hardcore band lived out here. He a middle class family, and he came to get a degree in filmmaking. And I come out and sorry. I came out and stayed I came out and stayed on this couch for about 6 months. You know, my walk to work was about 3 miles a day, and then I moved a little closer to work and got a car, built things back up. But that's and here I am.
And here you are. You've come a long way. You've got quite. I mean, you don't even have to get in, like you said, about politics and all that stuff without saying, "Damn, you got quite a story to tell."
Right, but my story it dictates my politics to a certain extent. And I kind of had a short conversation with you about this in private a little while ago. I see a lot of running from discomfort and political discussion, and that is where I got the most crippling. If we're made out of running from discomfort or running from pain or running from you know, reality and things you don't want to hear, things you don't want to face. And I think that's another reason why I go headfirst into these discussions. Because you can only make the right decisions with the right information, and you can never. I think the way I explained it to you is every bit of growth in life comes from some kind of pain or disturbance. Whether it be that you're growing gardens, you have to break some of the branches, and they have to be in a breeze so that the cell wall stretches and breaks and mends to make stronger plants. And you know, even our bodies, we exercise, we have to suffer to stay sharp and to stay at our peak, and to think that that's not going to echo in other parts of my life is I think naive. The only reason that I'm here, the only reason I'm not dead is I took that pain and I faced it. I had to run straight at it. And I'm not saying pain as far as abuse, but discomfort specifically. That doesn't make me comfortable. That doesn't make me feel nice. That's, I think, where you need to focus the most in your life. Those are the subjects you need to come at. Like the things I talked about here, like I have to sit down and figure out, why did I make those decisions, and where were the right decisions, and where did they come from? And I have to take responsibility for the things that were my fault, or I'm just going to do them again. It'll never get better. Never have growth without difficulty and suffering. All the good things in life are hard. All of them.
Well, it's true. I mean, there are times when you just have to know your limits and go, hey, I can't
deal
with this anymore. But if that's what you're always doing, yeah, maybe there's an issue there. But sometimes I know with political stuff, I feel like I got the sun in my face all the time with what's happening with Trump all the time, and sometimes I just have to pretend it's not happening and sing a little song to myself, and then I can come back later.
You know, I think for one, like we should take a long, hard look at ourselves. You know, why did the left act the way it acted? Why did the right act the way it acted? I mean, from the top to the bottom. Like I don't talk about Trump very much, but man, I watch him like a motherfucker, and I watch his followers even more because they're more interesting. The way they justify and you know you know, man, that is fascinating to see them say like he's keeping his campaign promises. Which ones? All the ones that you hope he might have carried through, he dropped, and all the ones you're like, that motherfucker won't do that. He's doing. Yeah. So anyway, and let me explain too. I think a lot of people have me misunderstood on this, and I think you did from the previous conversation that I had on the Wayward. I'm for safe spaces used in the right situation, right? You get a group of people, and you all agree that, you know, we're going to meet at this time in this place, and we're gonna you know. Or even your house if you want to do that, but to say that, like, you know, everyone on campus can't say this or can't talk about this, or just people shouldn't in general, that everyone should go around and give trigger warnings for everything all the time because there might be a person that can't handle it. I don't accept that. I expect the smaller use, I think, is appropriate and the contained, because frankly, the rest of us, and this is going to sound very mean, the rest of us have to talk like adults, so that we can get to the bottom of things. Like I'm really sorry that there are people having a hard time, but we can't hold back everyone else and hold back the conversation for those people. They have to catch up to us. Just, you know, and if you can't, enjoy your safe space, but the safe space needs to be a limited space and not a growing space.
Yeah, I think
in my opinion,
someone said like a whole college campus is a safe space. I'm like, that's not even, no, it's like,
there have been letters sent out, and there have been declarations by different student groups that they wanted to make the campus a safe space. So when I talk that, I'm clearly talking about the people that actually do want that. They are there.
I think that's why people attacking people based on labels is tough, because people definitely see just safe spaces, which isn't even that huge an issue. The way people see it is very different. And damn, we were talking like an hour and 20 minutes. I see you kind of told me we might go because we can go because you enjoy talking and I enjoy asking questions. So hey, it's appropriate that we're doing this. But dang, we gotta call it a night. So where are people going to be able to track you down to find you on shows and such?
Well, you can find me on Spreaker. By me, I mean the Wayward Atheist podcast on Spreaker.com/The Wayward Atheist with an S on the end and a V at the beginning. Or you can just Google us and find us. And we're on all the things that do the things, you know, YouTube and all that. No one watches our YouTube videos, but they're there. Most people just listen to the audio because there's not a video component to it anyway. And of course, find me on Facebook, I guess, if you dare. No, I'm just kidding. Find me on Facebook and have a conversation with me. I promise I am not as monstrous as some people seem to think. You know, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to ask some questions and get to the bottom of some things the best I can. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, I think the way you come off is just when somebody's blunt, it comes off as rude, even though that isn't necessarily intent. Mm-hmm. And people put a lot of intent into comments online, no matter what. So I could see that happening. Sometimes you just have to back up and kind of explain yourself and then try again. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I believe tonight did work.
Right.
Now, if
I would agree. I would agree.
Now, if you'd like to support this show, be like Bobby, Hugh, Teody, and Marissa, and go to patreon.com/Zachrilege, ZACHRILEGE. All you people, ReasonCon, you know where to find me. Follow me on Twitter. Like my Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook. Send all hate mail to me, not to him. Zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. I'll forward it, trust me. So thank you again to Dustin for being on tonight. Stay safe for the listeners. And if you need to chat, I'm available. If you're an atheist and feel alone, you are not alone. Reach out. Let's chat and get that human connectiveness that keeps people coming back every Sunday. Stay skeptical. I love all y'all. And I apologize for this noise, but I don't have the sound anymore. So...